Hello, and welcome to the Western New Mexico University School of Social Work Field Orientation. We're glad you're here. This orientation is designed for both students and field agency supervisors. If after watching the orientation you still have questions, please contact us. We'll provide contact information at the end of the video. Now I'd like to introduce you to some key people on our field team. Ms. Sandra Stanley and Ms. Yvonne Esparza are our internship coordinators. Adrian Torres is our field liaison. Luis Ortega Center is our MSW field director. Eric Center is our associate dean. And Becky Brandsburg Herrera is our BSW field director. Field education is considered the signature pedagogy of the profession, which means that field education is how we instruct and socialize our students into the profession of social work. Every accredited school of social work in the country requires field education as an integral part of the social work curriculum. Field education is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, in that students apply what they have learned in the classroom in a real-world setting under the guidance and mentorship of an experienced social worker or person in a related discipline. In their field practicum, students are expected to learn to apply all of the social work knowledge, values, and skills they learned in the classroom. As one of the final components in social work education, field gives students the opportunity to learn by doing, practicing knowledge, skills, values, and reflected processes learned in the classroom throughout their social work education in a real-world setting under the supervision of an experienced practitioner whose role is to mentor and educate the student as an emerging practitioner. The true goal of field practicum is for students to successfully integrate theory into practice. In the field, the focus turns from the acquisition of knowledge to the application of knowledge. Students are provided with opportunities to apply the social work knowledge and skills obtained in the classroom to actual practice situations. Field practicum also allows students to think about themselves as a social worker and to receive feedback from professionals with experience in the field. Finally, the field practicum prepares students to begin social work practice within an agency or organizational setting, giving them the skills they need to be a successful practitioner upon graduation. Let's define some of the roles in field. The agency supervisor is the person in the agency who has an MSW and at least 2 years of experience in the field, who teaches the practicum social work student skills during their field placement. For some students whose field placement does not have an MSW, a task supervisor is the person in the agency whose training is from a related discipline and who has experience in the field. This person may also supervise the practicum student, teaching them social work skills during their field placement. Students with a task supervisor are required to participate in a 1-hour weekly supervision session with a qualified social work supervisor who is a member of the Western New Mexico University faculty. The course professor or field faculty is the Western New Mexico University faculty member who teaches the field practicum course. The professor is also the person who maintains communication with the agency or task supervisor during the semester. This may include communication by telephone, by email, or attendance at meetings. Students should ensure that their agency supervisor knows who their WNMU field professor is and should assist in facilitating communication as needed. The field director is the member of the university faculty who manages and oversees field placement, site selection, and qualification, who consults with agency and task supervisors, who assists the course professors and field faculty, and who may make site visits either virtually or in person when needed to ensure student learning occurs according to the university and CSWE standards. The field director also handles any disciplinary issues that may arise and consults with the WNMU program director and associate dean when necessary. The field director is available to both students and the agency and task supervisors throughout the learning process. The field liaison serves as another primary link between the student, the field agency, and WNMU's School of Social Work. The field liaison's main role is to support and help the student, the course professor, and the agency supervisor if the need should arise. The field liaison is the first person to contact if there are any questions associated with timesheets and evaluations. The field liaison will maintain regular contact with the field program if any issues of concern arise during the semester between the student and agency supervisor. Finally, the internship coordinator works to assist students in setting up their field placement. This includes receiving students' field placement applications, verifying that students have met required prerequisites, reaching out to the prospective agency, obtaining an agency site application, an agency supervisor application, and verifying that the agency and agency supervisor meet WNMU and CSWE criteria. And finally, for assisting in the development of the affiliation agreement between WNMU and the agency. The internship coordinator also lets advisors know which students have been cleared for field and are ready to begin each semester. The agency supervisor's role is to teach students how to practice social work. It's important to understand that for most students, this is their first real-world social work experience. So the agency supervisor serves as a mentor, teacher, and guide. Agency supervisors create learning opportunities for students to integrate theory into practice. They demonstrate understanding of how to use knowledge, values, and skills for effective practice. Teach students how to use social work knowledge and values to inform their actions, and help students learn important skills like how to engage a client, how to build rapport, how to set goals, how to develop tasks to reach those goals, how to complete agency documentation, and how to practice ethically and effectively. The Council on Social Work Education ensures that all social work education includes a set of core social work competencies and associated practice behaviors. Each of the core competencies encompasses necessary knowledge, values, skills, and cognitive and affective processes required to carry out the competencies in practice. The agency or task supervisor must remember by the conclusion of the field placement, the student should be able to demonstrate and apply all of the core competencies and practice behaviors in any practice setting. One of the most important things to remember is that students must learn to apply the knowledge, values, and skills necessary for effective social work practice across settings, and not just at their internship agency. Thinking about this throughout the field practicum will be important for both the student and the agency or task supervisor. At the beginning of the semester, the course professor will contact the agency or task supervisor via email introducing themselves and will provide their contact information and, if needed, additional information pertaining to the course. At midterm, all students are evaluated to make sure things are going smoothly. Midterms are sent via Qualtrics software, and if agency supervisors or students have problems, they should contact our field liaison, Adrian Torres. Agency supervisors are expected to let us know if any issues arise, and the midterm helps us understand how students are doing and if our assistance is needed. Based on years of feedback, we no longer require video or phone visits at midterm, but the midterm evaluation allows field agency supervisors to request a follow-up meeting via phone or video conference if they would like. Field course professors are automatically notified if a follow-up is requested, and our field faculty are more than willing to meet when needed throughout the semester. Since 3 is our benchmark, or average score, if there are ratings lower than 3 on a midterm evaluation, the field faculty member may follow up regardless of whether a follow-up was requested. Near the end of the term, agency supervisors will receive the student's final evaluation. Final evaluations are also sent via email through our Qualtrics system, similar to the midterm evaluation. The final field evaluation will ask the agency or task supervisor to provide a rating for each of the CSWE social work core competencies and associated behaviors. It is very important to provide scores for each of the competencies since students are required to demonstrate every competency by the end of their field practicum. The WNMU field office is automatically notified when students score below competency, and when this occurs, the course professor or field director will make contact with the agency supervisor via email, telephone, or video conference. Monthly timesheets are required for every student for each month they're in their field placement. Students should document their time on their own since timesheets are sent at the end of each month. Once the timesheet is complete, the agency or task supervisor will receive an email asking them to review the timesheet to make sure the times listed are correct. Agency and task supervisors are asked to notify both the student and the course professor if changes to the timesheet are required. If no changes are needed, then there is no need to respond. The WNMU field office will assume that the timesheet has been reviewed by the agency supervisor and that it is correct. The learning contract is one of the most important documents that the agency and task supervisor will work on with their intern. At WNMU, our learning contract is done in several stages, with 4 total check-ins throughout the term. The learning contract is a collaborative document between the student, their supervisor, and the course professor, and outlines the measurable, specific tasks that the student will do to demonstrate each of the required competencies and practice behaviors. Students often need assistance in developing tasks, and agency supervisors help students create mutually agreed upon tasks that can be done to demonstrate competencies within the practicum setting. Students must complete all tasks on their learning contract by the end of the term. Monthly timesheets. In order for the monthly timesheet to work correctly, students must be careful to enter information correctly. Because we use Qualtrics software, timesheets will route themselves based on the information that is provided in the form. So if a student enters an incorrect email, the form will not get to the intended recipient. Again, agency supervisors are asked to review the timesheet to make sure it is complete and correct. And if corrections are necessary, the field agency supervisor or task supervisor should contact both the student and the course professor to let them know that corrections are required. Otherwise, the field office will assume that the information is correct. A signature is not required since the agency supervisors are expected to review these timesheets when they arrive via email. If students or supervisors experience difficulty with the learning contract, it is important to contact the field liaison, Adrian Torres, who can help. As previously discussed, the learning contract is one of the most important documents that agency and task supervisors will work on with their intern. The learning contract is intended to be a collaborative effort between the student, their supervisor, and the professor. Students will work with their agency supervisors to develop a set of measurable, specific tasks that the students will do at their agency to demonstrate each of the social work core competencies and practice behaviors. Students will be required to submit a copy of their working document several times during the semester for feedback from the professor. All students must complete all tasks on their learning contract by the end of the term. Since there are mutually agreed upon tasks set by the agency supervisor and student for each practice behavior, agency supervisors should be able to provide a rating for each of these at the final evaluation. Students will be notified when midterm and final evaluations are sent and when to schedule meetings. Let's talk about supervision requirements. The Council on Social Work Education requires that all students receive at least 1 hour of MSW supervision for each week that they are in a field practicum. Students may be supervised in the agency by a non-MSW. In that case, WNMU provides a supervision class to meet this requirement. All students in a field practicum are required to participate in a weekly field practicum class for 1 hour every week. Let's talk about safety. The agency supervisor plays an important role in student safety in the field. It's important for agency supervisors to inform students of potential safety or health risks at the agency, to provide safety training including de-escalation and emergency plans, to provide agency safety guidelines and policies, including where appropriate, educating students on universal precautions, to take steps to ensure the safety of the work environment and minimize safety risk, to notify the field director immediately of any safety or health incidents. Talk to your student about any safety precautions applicable to your agency or the surrounding area. This is a good opportunity for students to learn about specific safety policies and practices when conducting home and community visits. If your agency is a security officer, arrange for the student to meet with them to learn about agency protocol, warning signs, prevention, and other questions. Discuss risk levels as they vary between agencies and between specific populations and settings. Now let's talk a little about what not to do as a field supervisor. Agreeing to take a student and then assigning them to someone else without discussing it with the student, field liaison, internship coordinator, or field director. We only send information to the person who has been cleared by our field office to supervise the student. So anytime a change is necessary, it is very important to communicate that with us as soon as possible. Of course, having an intimate relationship with a field placement student is both inappropriate and unethical, but you knew that. Another no-no is neglecting to provide a basic orientation, things like dress code, parking, computer, what folks do for lunch, roles within the agency, and any pertinent policies, practices, or issues that the student should be aware of. Interns need to know the ropes of your agency, and it is important not to assume that the student will know the agency's expectations without them being discussed with the student. Missing 1 hour weekly supervision meetings or refusing to schedule them is another thing that agency or task supervisors should not do. Students need the support and the supervision which is why CSWE requires 1 hour per week of supervision. The program also requires students to document that they have met supervision requirements in their weekly supervision logs. This next one should seem obvious, but violating the NASW Code of Ethics is another thing that must be avoided. If an ethical dilemma arises, it should be used as a teaching opportunity, and the agency or task supervisor should discuss the conflict with the intern. Sometimes, conflicts between what students have been taught in the classroom and agency practices may arise. It's important not to tell students to ignore the things that they are learning in school and just pay attention to how it is done in the practicum agency. Keep in mind that social work education and competencies change over time, as do licensure exams. Western New Mexico University works hard to ensure that students receive current information on evidence-based practices. If questions arise regarding this, please be sure to reach out to the intern's course professor. Not being receptive to information students might bring to you regarding new research or best practices they have learned. Students at WNMU are required to understand the interconnection between theory and practice and to translate research evidence to inform practice. They are also required to consider how evidence-based practice is applied across settings. Also, not participating in communication with the field directors, course professors, field liaison, and internship coordinator can also be problematic. Please remember that we are here when you need us, and that good communication is a two-way street. Finally, please don't expect the student to know how to perform all the duties of someone who is already a licensed professional social worker without training or guidance. They are learners, and as an agency or task supervisor, you are a teacher, mentor, and guide, and not just the manager. So here are some things our students are responsible for. A full list of student responsibilities is provided in the WNMU Field Manual. Students are responsible to complete and turn in all required field documentation and coursework by the due dates. No late work or extension of due dates is allowed in field unless the student has communicated with the professor ahead of time or there is a documentable emergency. Students are required to attend class regularly each week and on time and actively participate during weekly in-class discussions. Students are required to submit signed and completed PDF copies of evaluations by due dates. They also play an active role in the completion and monitoring of their own learning contract. They efficiently use time spent in the agency. They participate in weekly supervision with their field agency supervisor or university supervision. Students treat field agency supervisors or task supervisors and other agency staff in a professional and respectful manner. This includes dressing in a professional manner, professional oral and written communication, being on time, and following the agreed-upon practicum schedule, and attending to professional boundaries and ethics. Students must keep in mind that their agency supervisor or task supervisor is the expert, and they are the student. And students are responsible to follow the NASW Code of Ethics at all times. All Western New Mexico University field practicums are 225 hours. Students should work with their agency supervisor to develop a mutually agreed upon schedule, keeping in mind that class attendance is required and students should not schedule placement hours during field seminar class. BSW students are required to complete 450 total hours over the course of 2 semesters. MSW students are required to complete 900 hours over all of their field practicums. Advanced standing students are assumed to have completed 450 hours in their undergraduate social work program and will also complete a total of 450 hours over the course of 2 semesters. Advanced standing students must verify that they have completed 450 undergraduate internship hours, otherwise they have to make up hours to ensure that they have the required 900 total hours. Non-advanced standing students complete the entire 900 required field placement hours over the course of 4 semesters of practicum. Now let's talk about the student's role in their safety. A full section regarding safety is available in the WNMU Field Manual. Students are responsible for understanding any safety or health risks at the agency. They should seek out agency safety training, including de-escalation and emergency plans, as well as agency safety guidelines and policies. Students are responsible for taking steps to ensure the safety of the work environment and to minimize safety risks. And students are responsible to notify the field director immediately of any safety or health incidents. Now we'd like you to meet our field faculty. Eric Center is our Associate Dean of the School of Social Work. Becky Brandsburg Herrera is our BSW Field Director. Louise Ortega is our MSW Field Director. Our faculty include Maria Sierra Ortiz, Erica Grusendorf, Cindy Simon, Dr. Kate Gibbons, Manuel Ortega, Carrie Hines, Debbie Alvarado, Stephanie Bonnet, Dr. April Jones, Butri A. Chowtham, and Karen Whitlock. Our field support staff include Sandra Stanley, our internship coordinator, Yvonne Esparza, our other internship coordinator, and Adrian Torres, our field liaison. Every student will need to submit all field paperwork, including the field practicum application, legal disclosure, and agency information for every semester to either Ms. Stanley or Ms. Esparza. This is to make sure we are kept up to date in case there are changes. Ms. Stanley and Ms. Esparza make sure that all students and agencies are cleared to proceed with field placement. Ms. Torres' duties are to support students and field agencies during their field practicum. She also sends out midterm and final evaluations and can help schedule appointments if the need arises. If you need additional information, most of this information is published on our website. The web address is socialwork, all one word, at WNMU.edu. Select the respective program, then on the left menu, click Field Practicum Information. This page shows the MSW Field Practicum Information page. Field Practicum paperwork referenced earlier is located here. You can access the field manual by clicking here. Thank you for participating in this field orientation. Reach us anytime by emailing us at socialwork@WNMU.edu. We hope you have a great semester.